Sills! What a weekend. What an absolute weekend it was in sports. Look, the NCAA tournament, in my opinion, is the second best sporting event in America. And now I'm even going to add the women to that mix. I enjoyed it. I have never watched, and I don't think I've ever started a talk show out. For me, in my 30 plus years doing this, talking women's college basketball, I'm not that dude, man. I talk about what's trending now and what's going on, and that's not my deal, you know? I mean, Major League Baseball, watch this, sitting around breaking down Philly games. In the first weekend, I don't know, call me after 20 games. I'll let you know what I think of the team after 20. That's how you break it down, right? This unbelievable. Tonight, national championship. SDSU versus UConn. College basketball, man. I had a great time watching it. My Canes came up short against, I think, the best team in tonight's matchup. And I think UConn is going to give San Diego State pretty much all they can handle. But I do think Brian Dutcher, that's going to be great to watch tonight. But unfortunately, and by the way, 24 days until the draft, we got a ton of football, obviously. I was just telling Tone my new favorite athlete is Angel Reese, LSU. That had to be one of the greatest shit-talking moments in the history of sports. John Cena, you know. I loved it last night. I loved watching that. I loved it. This is the typical double standard that I talk about when you cover women's athletes and men's athletes, or black and white. And both had that dynamic in this, okay? Women's sports. You got people all over the country, mostly white media dudes, calling Angel Reese classless. I don't see anybody talking shit on Larry Bird when he's calling out people, or Jordan wagging his finger, you know, telling Dikembe Mutombo, going right back at him with that. I didn't see any of that when people were talking shit on Jordan. She does this to Caitlin Clark. I loved it. And you know what that does too? If white media people covered women's sports better, they'd have more of a place and more of a foothold in our society today, and it would be growing quicker. You can't cover these two genders differently. The sport needs that. By the way, the head coach of LSU reminds me of Jimmy Johnson. She lets you be you, and she's legendary. I thought every single thing you had in the game, they blew the team out. They upset the number one team in the country. You had shit talking in it. Every sports fan on the planet, you know what's funny? Black or white, every sports fan had to love that. Holy cow, they got personality in this thing. See, the one thing the women can't do, they can't slam it, right? So you don't have the pure athleticism that you see on the men's side. So you have to have more. It can't just be about sexuality. It's got to be about athleticism, personalities. Dude, the best thing happened for women's sports is Angel Reese. That's a win. That's a win. I mean, Caitlin Clark has swagger when she does this. Angel Reese is ghetto. How is that not racist? How is that not like, what are you thinking when how does that go through your mind when you're looking at that going like this? Man, that's awesome for women's college basketball. Dude, that's a massive win. Toe just told me it had more ratings and more viewers than the NBA All-Star game. That's a massive win, man. You should be celebrating it. Instead, you got people going, what a classless athlete. I'm like, that's not how I saw that. Women's college basketball needs more of that. More personality. How do you think WWE rolls? Why? Because the wrestling's real? That sport is completely built around personalities. I don't care what anybody says. Class? Hey, man, you don't win national championships with choir girls, women, or choir boys. That's my favorite team now, LSU Womens Basketball. I'll be watching more of that. Kudos to you. Congratulations for putting a footprint in sports and putting you on the front page. That's what you do, man. That is absolutely perfect. Barry Sanders. Yeah, Barry Sanders and Tim Duncan. No one brings their names up ever. You know why? They're the most boring athletes of all time. America doesn't like boring. Get that through your head, JM. Nobody likes boring. Make me take notice of you. Angel Reese, one of my favorite athletes. I'll be watching you, man. I'll be watching you. I love that. People love Tim Duncan. They do. They sure do love Tim Duncan. But I'll tell you what, every time the Spurs got into the NBA Finals, they were some of the worst rated finals in the history of the NBA because nobody watched them. Hey, the great series with Spurs and Nets, that was a highly rated series. Dude, I don't care how great you are. Okay? I care you make me watch. I don't care this ain't about being a good dude or a good woman. This is about getting people's attention. Sorry, guys. You lose this one on me. I love the girl. I love the athlete. I love what she's done for women's sports. Here I am, somebody who doesn't cover boring sports, talking about her. Tony said 102 points, first time someone reached 100 points. Dude, huge fan. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. And T goes like this. Loudmouth hurricane characteristic. Yeah. What did you expect me to say? I come from the school of shit talking. From the school that invented swagger. And you thought I was going to come down on her? Not here. Dude, we invented it. And you thought I was going to come out here and talk shit on her. You got the wrong dude, man. Tone goes, they must have forgotten who you were, Sills. Really? You thought I was going to talk shit on her? Hey, man, get this. There's certain people around the country that have like vehicles and avenues and they have FU money. Okay? I have, and for me, I have pure opinions. Man, I love that. Angel Reese. Somebody goes, Sills, will you ever get a Jalen Hurts jersey? No, but I'll have an Angel Reese jersey. Okay? JM goes, how many rings did that win you? 2. 2 if you're keeping score. Would you like to see them? They're right under the hurricane hat. 2, JM. If you want to keep score, 2. 2 national championships. How many did that win you? Should have won 2 more. All good, brother. All good, man. All good. All good. Hey, I just had to make that statement, man. How can you call that girl ghetto? And what a racist and what an absolutely racist media. My friends, that right there is the prime example of black athletes being covered differently than white athletes. It's blatant. It's blatant. Blatant. Swagger. Ghetto? Where did you even get that from? Some of you should be ashamed of yourselves that are in the media that say those things about a woman like that her and her team won a national championship. That's spectacular. Kudos to you, man. Kudos. I'm a huge fan now. All right, football. Funny, I got a sheet over the weekend that told me the team's needs, and Bledsoe showed me a lot of the teams, 32 teams to be exact, on what the needs are. We're going to get to that here in a second. But as we roll into 24 days out from the draft, we said, do you think it would be in the best interest for the Eagles to have the extension for Jalen Hurts before the draft? After the draft? What would be the best time? And I'm going to tell you why I think this is going to go where it goes here with Jalen and when the Eagles announce the contract extension. But first, I want to hear from you. What do you think would be the best time? And I want you to do this. And I want you to follow with me because I think this is following the personality of the quarterback of the Eagles. Kyle says after. After. Kyle, why do you say after? After Joey B and Justin Herbert. Pay him halfway through the season. I don't want to get Jalen into the season. I want him to sign his contract prior to getting into the year. I'd like to have that wrapped up because I don't want to roll into something that could be Baltimore. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to roll into anything that could be misconstrued like Baltimore is going through, and nor do you want it to possibly get like that. Why do you think it's in the best interest after the draft to get this done? I don't want to get it done in June and July either. Okay? Before it's a money issue, might have to trade out of the first round. You know what? JB? Think about this. If you traded that 10th pick out of the first round, you got more money for Hurts, If you trade the 10th pick and use the 30th pick, you got more money for Hurts. And with the 10th pick can pay Hurts. Nobody's underlining that. Here's why. Well, as you know, you go from top to bottom, more money, more signing bonus money. If you're the 30th pick, it's less dough. And you have more money to pay Hurts. And with the 10th pick, you can go 2, 3, and 4 this year, potentially next year, and you got compensation picks next year. Okay? I like it. That 10th pick can help pay Jalen. It could help pay Jalen, fill holes on the team, and financially make you responsible on the salary cap. Kick the can down the road to next year when you got a deeper pool of LBs, DTs, and safeties, positions you're going to have to fill. Absolutely true. That's why you guys are the best. That's why you guys are the smartest. But here's also why I think it's playing itself out. What do you think Jalen Hurts and his team went to them, the Eagles, and said this? I'm a team guy. Let's get the guys signed, as many as we can. See how many we can bring back. Let's sign some free agents. Let's get the new guys in so I can get accustomed to talking to them. And then we'll worry about me. Does that sound like Jalen Hurts' personality? I think this is playing out like Jalen Hurts' personality. And see, the thing in Baltimore, it's not playing out like Lamar Jackson's personality. Lamar's a good man. He's a good person. But he's being painted by the honk media that go after because, again, you got to remember something. There's a narrative now. He wants guaranteed money, and every NFL player should be fighting for guaranteed money for every player behind him. Okay? The Deshaun Watson deal, in my opinion, is the greatest deal in the history of the NFL for players. You know why? It's the first sign that someone actually gets guaranteed 100%. How is that not supposed to be celebrated instead of looked at as the antichrist of contracts in the NFL? How is that supposed to be looked negative at? Now, I get the dude. So it's easy to attack. It's easy to attack because of his character. I get it. I celebrate Deshaun Watson's contract and what Lamar's fighting for. 100% guaranteed contracts. Only people that hate it are the NFL and the media people. Those are the ones that hate it. Why? Shouldn't you be fighting for guaranteed deals for all players? They haven't signed Jalen in case they can make A.J. Brown-like trade. They need cap space. Justin, Miguel, that could be. Miguel, that could be. But I also think, wait, you don't think Jalen went like this? You don't think Jalen went, hey, look, let's get as many of our guys signed. I think this played out like this, don't you? Watch. Hey, let's get as many of our guys signed as possible. Let's see what's out there. Howie's like to Jalen and his folks. Hey, by the way, you think Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie are being transparent with him on what they're doing? They're not asking him what they should do. But do you think they're being transparent with him in this whole process? I think the more transparent you are and the more communication you have, the easier this deal's going to go. Look at Green Bay, how poorly that's going. Look how poorly that Green Bay deal's going. There's no communication between the two parties. There's zero. I think that's how that whole thing went with Mahomes, and when they were talking about bringing in Mahomes and having him come in there, Alex Smith and everybody, hey, this is what we're doing. We're going to make a move for him. But we want you to know. I think that's why the waters are so calm in Philadelphia. I'll tell you this. There's not a chance in hell that the waters are calm in Los Angeles with Justin Herbert's people and the Spanos family. Those are sinister owners who fight over every nickel and dime. They don't give a shit about anything else but saving money. The guy in Cincinnati, you think that deal's going to go smooth? Hell, we already know in Baltimore it's not. Jalen is making this process smooth. And I think plus the owner, it allows him to come out and go like this. We want him around here a long time. Can I tell you the same thing here? I've got to tell you guys. I think they're going to maybe offer him a 7-year contract. I mean, what would be considered a long time for Hurts and the Eagles? 5 years? 5 years, it's kind of a long time. It's half a decade. That's a long time. 5 years? I can't think 7. I'm going to think 5. Reese goes, damn, what's your take on the Cleveland Browns? I think they're going to contend this year for the conference title. I think they got a lot of talent there. I think they have a lot of talent. The Watson deal was a great deal for players, but the Browns will be the Browns. Okay, Vet. Browns will be the Browns. Little City goes 7-4. Troy, I think 4-5, somewhere in there, right? That's a long dude, half a decade. I mean, right? I think it's something like 4-5, right? Like that. I think Jalen has gone to them and said, let's get everything done first. Business is business, but you know what? We need a team to win. I think that's why Jalen and the Eagles are going like, I don't think they're sitting around waiting for these other quarterbacks to sign. I think they've already got a number. They've already got the framework. And I think Howie is being given the latitude by Jalen Hurts to do this. Get as many people as you want signed. And to me, I think the amount of money is going to be determined on what they do at 10. Think of it. You trade out of 10, right? The Eagles trade out of 10. Look at the amount of money you save trading out of 10. That money could all be sent towards Jalen Hurts, and you're still making your team better in the same process. The 30th pick is a great pick. It's not a poor pick. The 10th pick is a spectacular pick because you can do more things. How about if teams start parachuting in going, some of them positional players start falling down to 10, and somebody comes to Howie and goes, hey, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a 1 next year and 2 2s for that 10th pick. If we can jump in there now, sold. That 10th pick could be the golden ticket for some teams in the NFL out there. Am I right? A lot of that. I think you pay Hurts off that 10th pick and get your team better in the process. The 30th pick is the pick they're going to take because it's a value pick. Why? You could take Bijan Robinson there. Shit, you might be able to trade down 2 spots into the second round and out of it, get another 1, and still get Robinson in the top of the second. And Howie has a collection of first rounders and compensation picks next year, like 12 of them. There's a lot of off-ramps you can go here with this. Okay? I'll tell you the one thing that the Eagles got at quarterback that they haven't had. Maybe since Jaws. They got a guy who loves being an Eagle. Have you ever had a quarterback that's a franchise quarterback that loves being an Eagle as much as Jalen Hurts has? Randall? Donovan? Nick Foles? Possibly? Jalen Hurts? Sills, when are you going to pay someone $50 million a year? He's now a partner. You know Jalen and Howie already talked. No, Paul. I think they're talking constantly. Let me say this to you. In the last 25 years, has Jalen Hurts at that quarterback position been the best face of the franchise? Yes? No? You think Jalen's been the best face of the franchise at that position? I went back and looked, and I'm like, Jaws? Going back to his time when he in the 80s? Dan, what do you think if they trade down from 10, picking up an extra second, getting Cansey, the kid from Pitt, at 15, Smith at 30, getting old? Plug, I think those are all the right comments. Cal says maybe best leader. Brian Dawkins is a pretty good leader. I don't know, man. Brian Dawkins, I might throw that in the room there a little bit, you know? Brian Dawkins, Eagle leader. He was pretty good, man. That's pretty good leader, Brian Dawkins. Right? I like Brian Dawkins. Guy was every time that you ever look at films or you look at sound bites or you see like clips, who do you see talking in the huddle? Him. Right? Good DB? I might say great DB. All right. I think Hurts, in my opinion, I think Jalen Hurts has Jalen has set the tone. Hey, let's get everything done first. Let's get business out of the way. I don't think Jalen considers himself business. I think Jalen considers himself part of the process like Brady did. Is he not handling himself like Brady did in New England? Brady did this. Bill got into free agency, signed guys, moved guys, got ready for the draft. Brady got his money usually after the draft. It was never a debate on how much money Brady got, too. It was always a debate on how the roster looked. Nobody ever complained about Tom Brady not being the highest paid player in the history of the sport, did they? Because he never was. You know, Tom Brady made more money in Tampa than he ever did in New England. He never made giant money. I think his last year in New England, he was making $25 million. He was never the highest paid guy in his entire time in New England. And no one said anything or the wiser to it. Because it was about investing in himself. Jalen has figured out the Rubiks Cube here. He knows, hey, San Francisco's got a... What is the one common denominator that is the difference point between the Niners and the Eagles? If you're going to play a game, it's the QB. And the QB knows that. So the QB, instead of being like the guy in Green Bay, is going to go like this. You know, if I invest $5 or $6 more million in my roster, and I'm more patient, and I'm more transparent with the front office, they're going to be more in line to deal with me over the next 7 years, and they're going to be more in line to be communicating with me, no hard feelings, no one's getting butthurt, and the organization's going to know, guess what? That he's working to keep the team together. What was the one comment that Mike Brown, and doesn't it blow your mind? Doesn't it blow your mind? I'll move on to the next topic here in a minute. Doesn't it blow your mind in Cincinnati that the first thing in negotiations with Mike Brown and Joe Burrow's people, hey, you know what? You don't have to have all the money and you don't have to have the highest contract. And you're already coming from a place of being a salesman and you're on the used car lot. Joe Burrow's a brand new car, man. And you want to pay Joe Burrow used car prices. The owner of the Browns, his first words like during the Super Bowl was like, well, you know, you don't have to be the highest paid guy. I'm like, that's not how you start a negotiation. I mean, Mike Brown's on the used car lot. Joe Burrow's over on the new cars next to the Ferraris and the Aston Martins. I mean, right? And then there's Jalen just being quiet. Dude, every week that guy keeps his hole shut. Every week Jalen Hurts keeps his mouth shut. He's making millions of dollars. Baltimore's helping him. Chargers are helping him. Cincinnati's helping him. All these guys are helping him get exactly what he wants. You know what that is? A foothold in the organization and generational wealth and a great team. He's having his cake and eat it. That's smart. He's a smart guy, man. Jalen Hurts is a smart dude. We work on my passing game. Hard not to like him. Hard not to root for him. Hard not to see the journey and say, that represents Philadelphia. Of all the guys, I mean, he's not that much of a personality. So he's not going to sell tickets with that glowing personality of his. You know what he's going to sell, though? Being a Philadelphia person. Show up to work, punch my time clock in, go do what they ask me to do. And guess what? Just show up and win. See, that's the difference in Los Angeles and New York. You got to do other bullshit. But when you're in Philly, punch your time clock and win. And your rewards are there, man. Jason Kelsey says it. Punch your time clock. Just go win. The other stuff is incidental, man. Punch your time clock and win. Just punch it in and win. Dude, in my opinion, I don't think people understand that. The Philadelphia sports fan, you walk in there, man, and you're halfway decent and you show effort, in my opinion, they're going to celebrate your ass. Larry Boa, great example of that. Someone like that shows up, does his job, goes to work every day. He's on winning teams, loves where he plays. Jaw's a great example. That's why he still lives in Philly. And dude, the hardest, and get this, and win. Win with effort. Jalen's smart here. So when you watch his, and everyone, you know, the media in Philly's going like this. You think that deal gets done now? You think that? I don't. I think he goes like this, man, because I think this is who the dude is. Hey, man, we'll get it done after the draft. Don't worry about it. And we'll see what they do at 10. We'll figure it out then. And I think that's just who he is. Good for him. That's how you build relationships and long-term relationships with your organization. That's the one thing Wentz never got, man. See, I told you this about Wentz and what folks had told me when he was in Indianapolis. And the one thing that my friend Frank Wright kept trying to hammer out of him, you can't be friends with half the locker room and half the front office. You got to be friends with everyone, even if you don't like him. You think Brady liked everything that was going on in New England? Brady was a submissive one. He was a submissive one. And guess what? At the end, it was Brady coaching Belichick. Do you see how that morphed? In the beginning, Brady needed all that coaching and discipline, needed to know what it took. Can you imagine listening to the greatest defensive coordinator in the history of the sport and what he sees every day on how to stop a quarterback like Peyton Manning? If you're Tom Brady, how don't you absorb that like a sponge? Brady, what, you think Lloyd Carr at Michigan was teaching his ass that? Are you crazy? Lloyd Carr kept trying to take the job away from Brady every year he was in Detroit, or every year he was in Ann Arbor. They kept trying to take that job away from him. Lloyd Carr. Lloyd Carr, after Brady started winning, oh, he's a Michigan guy. Well, he wasn't a Michigan guy when you were there, dude. You tried taking that job from him every year but one. And the year he had it, they won 12 ball games. I believe an Orange Bowl. Drew Henson. That's as bad as Mike Glennon at NC State over Russell Wilson. When the coach said we're giving the job to Mike Glennon. Who? Russell Wilson goes to Wisconsin and then writes his own record book. Tried. He needed that. But in the end, guess what he did? Because Belichick's ego is so much bigger than Brady's. Brady knows that. He needed him. Well, that's why that relationship in the end went the other way. Belichick needed Brady. He couldn't teach him anymore. Because Brady brought that same philosophy and all the things Bill taught him to Tampa, and they won. He was so dynamic in that process. He won on Zoom calls a Super Bowl with his teammates. That's what Jalen's building. Jalen's friends with everybody in that locker room, it seems, to me at least. Is it an environment? Hey, so you think it's really a place to want to play in Philadelphia because of the environment or Jalen? Isn't Jalen the environment now? Hasn't he now taken on that? You really think outside of this last year, that wasn't a destination for wide receivers to go. As far as I'm concerned, A.J. Brown went to Philly because of Jalen Hurts. He didn't go there because of Howie Roseman. Now the $20 million don't hurt. Okay? The $20 million don't hurt. But do you think that Philadelphia was a destination of wide receivers before Jalen showed up? Where? Show me. Where in the world do you have that dynamic that every wide receiver wanted to go to a place where no one's had 100 catches as a wideout? Where did that come from? Has Jalen made it so that free agents want to play? Hey, look, you think free agents are clamoring to go to New England now? What happened in New England with the Patriot Way? Where's the Patriot Way? I must have missed it. What happened to the Patriot Way? Isn't it now the Eagle Way? But isn't that because of what Hurts has created? He's created an environment where people want to play there now. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, you guys may say that free agents wanted to always come to Philly. I'm like, really? Okay, well, the Super Bowl, you guys got Chris Long, you had a die, you had LeGarrette Blount, you got all them dudes. Okay? Jordan didn't chase Mutombo. Whatever, man. You can hate on the girl all you want. I loved it, and we'll agree to disagree, dude. We're talking about women's basketball because of Angel Reese. I don't give a shit what anyone says. I 1,000% support her. I hope she does it again. I hope it becomes a signature point of her career. Shit, I'm going to watch LSU basketball because of her. You crazy? That's with some class? Whatever. I thought it was great for the sport. Get over yourselves. We're not talking about doing something stupid. We're talking about doing something gamesmanship-wise. And somebody doesn't like an African-American girl doing that to a white girl. That's a you thing. Show some class. The other one, she does it to someone else, and it's swagger. Of course it is. It's because you're blinded. All right. Nobody talks women's basketball. All right. Let's go into, as we are now 24 days out from the draft here, I wrote down positions here. And by the way, this has changed. This has changed for the Eagles. I got all 32 teams, though. And what we'll do is we'll do the NFC East. And then what we'll do is we'll do the rest of the league. But right now, this is what front offices and people are thinking the Eagles need. Let me get the Eagles here. Okay. What do you think the top need on the team is right now? They got 4 needs circled. They got 4 needs circled for the Eagles. What do you think those 4 needs are? Four needs. Kyle says DT or O-line. Never go wrong with that organization. Sileo, you will soon be telling us that Jalen is a dual threat. No, I have not changed off that. Dual threat is not a long. I've not changed off that, Joe. Joe, I'm talking about who Jalen Hurts is. His style of play is completely a different conversation. Don't tie the two the same. They're not. Once again, that's a different conversation. Who he is what he is today. His style of play will always be something, for me, that's a negative. Tony Dungy said it here. That will never change. They don't last. So maybe I do have to underline that. Dual threat quarterbacks don't last long in this league, and he won't either. I wasn't talking about that. That's a whole different conversation. DTLBRB safety. DT safety linebacker, running back. Look at one above all. Everybody seems to be in the same conversation with this one player. Maurice says, I like an offensive guard pick. I want them to go after the best guards. We're talking running backs. Punter, O-line, DT. Sills. Jeremiah goes next year. Jalen will be the MVP. Maybe. Got a great offense around him. Eagle better win. No position. Just draft an elite talent. Interesting. Okay. Here's what Bledsoe says, the Eagles. And by the way, this is not how I think they're going to draft. Running back, O-line, D-line, and safety. Is the scouting service right? Running back is first. O-line is second. D-line is third. Safety is four. They don't have a linebacker at all in the building. Maybe Nakobe. But they didn't even list the linebacker position. They listed running back, O-line, D-line, and safety as the top four priorities for the Eagles heading into the draft in 24 days. Breed goes, I want the OT from Northwest and put him at guard. Skronoski seems to be the highest rated guy. Take the best player. Doesn't this aim you towards this? Why not take with the 30th pick Bijan Robinson? Like I've been saying. Take him at 30, trade the 10th pick. Use the money to pay Jalen. Get more picks in this year's draft in rounds 2, 3, and 4. And go there. You're still building the team. You're bringing quality guys. And what's the most important thing for this year? You need volume picks. You need volume picks. We talked all last week about how they're not really good at drafting on that side of the ball. You need as many picks, in my opinion, volume picks. And I don't care what anyone says. They don't draft on the defensive side of the football very well, and they haven't over the last 20 years. That's been a fact. Josh Sweat, 4th round, great. Fletcher Cox, for sure. Brandon Graham. And after that, in 20 years, or 15 years, who? No linebackers, no corners. Very limited in safeties. Edge rusher, kind of, not really. Nobody preeminent and nobody. I would say this to you about Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick has probably been the most dominant pass rusher since Hugh Douglas. Fair? Shepard says Bijan won't be there at 30. Probably right, because the Cowboys will get him at 26. You're right. Robinson will probably be taken off the board. There's only one player, though, that can impact the football team this year that's on that draft board. It's the running back from Texas. You think an offensive lineman is going to impact the Eagles or edge rusher or safety? You really think there's a Sauce Gardner out there? And plus, they got their 2 corners signed to $14 million deals. There's not a player in that first round outside of that running back from Texas that could come into that football team and help Jalen Hurts more. Nobody. There's nobody in that draft except the running back from Texas. And you're going to pass over him because why? Hell, how about doing this? Trade the 30th, trade from 10 down to, as long as it's in front of the Cowboys, you trade in front of the Cowboys. And you make sure they don't get him because the Cowboys are going to get him. The Cowboys are going to grab him. Philly 500. Yes, draft Bijan. Please, God, for the love of all cannolis worldwide, draft 5 big sills. I'm 100% behind Philly 500. He was the first, actually, to put that out there. Okay? Trade down from 10. Got to trade. Put it in front of the Cowboys. The Cowboys are drafting this man. They are drafting Bijan Robinson if he falls down there. The Eagles are in control of their own destiny here. Watch this, though. Do I think they do that? No. But there is not a guy in that draft. There's not a player in that first round that can help him more than that running back from Texas. Nobody. Lineman. Shit, Cam Jurgens is probably going to be more of an impact than anybody you would draft in the first round in the O-line at guard. And plus you're in between Lane Johnson and Jason Kelce. And you got Jeff Stoutland coaching you. I'm assuming that's a pretty good class to be in. So wait a minute. My teacher is Jeff Stoutland, and the two guys that are playing next to me are Pippen and Jordan. I think that's pretty good. That's quite an education Cam Jurgens is going to get. Hey, I'm going to make a proclamation to you right now. I think Cam Jurgens is going to be an all-pro in about 5 years. You're going to have the new generation of all-pros, Landon Dickerson, Jordan Mailata, and Cam Jurgens. Why? Well, because the guy leading the orchestra is the best in the business. This guy's Leonard Bernstein over here. He's sitting here at the Boston Pops. I mean, how could you not think that? Right? Robinson helps you the most. Move down. Don't let the Cowboys grab that guy. The Cowboys are moving the needle more towards the Eagles. And by the way, whatever it is, Dak's got the pink slip on the Eagles. He beats you guys all the time. Now, Mike McCarthy's not a new play caller. I think that in a way. Let's take a look at the NFC East now. Okay? Then we'll look at the entire league on needs as we get ready for the draft in 24 days. Okay? Let's go to Washington. Washington needs a quarterback. Right there, when I start out, they got 3 needs: quarterback, O-line, and linebacker. I actually think Washington is improving right in front of our eyes. I think Washington's getting better. But when you start with this, watch. Quarterback. Dude, that's the one thing you don't want to hear when you're getting ready for a draft. What's your biggest need? Quarterback. Shit. Everything else is incidental. Everything is incidental. Well, you need a corner. Get the quarterback fixed first. The quarterback position is essential in building your roster. Ask Rex Ryan. Ask Bill Belichick right now how important not having a quarterback in the building that can win games. You know the problem that you have with Mac Jones? You had too much. When Brady left New England, the shockwave in New England is still being felt. It's still being felt. You didn't have a guy that could throw you out of trouble. You don't have coordinators in the building helping him. Getting Bill O'Brien back in that building is one of the most important hires that they have made in a long time. Because he's a guru there. This guy worked with Jalen. Getting him back in New England and getting a true coordinator in the building. Like, remember something, Bill O'Brien didn't suck with the Texans. That guy actually had a winning record. He was a horrible general manager, and the McNair family are terrible. He won with, what was that kid from UNC? Won with some like stiff quarterback. I think he even won a division title with him. Washington needs also O-line help. That plays into the Eagles. I said it last week, and I'll say it again. I think the Eagles have the best front four in the East. And they need linebackers. Okay? But again, I go with tone on this one. That's not really an impact position. But for them to have to need linebackers, it tells you how weak they are. And by the way, I think the Eagles are weak at linebacker too. But here's the deal. But they have I think them and Washington have the best defensive line in the East, NFC East. Okay? And again, Jordan Davis is put in a new role. He's put in a new role. Let's go to I'm so thrilled that Bledsoe sends me these reports here, and I'm grateful that they do. And a lot of my friends like Frank Reich and all these guys send me a lot of information. And so we're very thankful to that those guys end up doing that for us. All right, let's do the Cowboys. Here's the Cowboys' needs. Running back, wide receiver, O-line, D-line, linebacker, and DB. Okay, well, let's take a look at this. They gave that tag to Tony Pollard. I still think they need another guy in the building, and that's Bijan Robinson. Brandon Cooks, wideout was their second need. Look at what they did. Cowboys went right down the list. Running back, Pollard, franchise tag. Brandon Cooks, restructuring of a contract. Second. O-line. Okay? O-line's pretty good in the draft this year. I told you the shitty positions are running back, safety, linebackers. Not very good at defensive tackle outside of the top guys. Okay? They need linebacker help. Here's my boy, Philly 500. Bijan in Philly is plug in and play now. Your offense is stable in the next 5 years. I'm not worried about the second contract. Get me a couple rings. It's correct. It's exactly correct. Gives a shit if he breaks down in 5 years. Most of these guys are breaking down in 5 years. What was Todd Gurley after 5? What was Zeke Elliott after 5? Most of these guys, again, they don't have a lot of tread on the tire. And to his point, how about this? So let's look at the offense. Bijan Robinson and Boston and Gainwell, Penny, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. Goddard's going to have 1,000 yards this year. Your O-line is completely intact outside of the right guard position. And by the way, I think Isaac had a great year last year. I really like him. And I thought he played well at the back end of the season, too. He was really a good ball player, man. I thought he and Lane Johnson destroyed the Giants. They destroyed the Giants. I know something you don't know. Hassan is actually good, and the Eagles are in talks with trading Devin White. Underdog, he's a great pass rusher, not a very good tackler, and not a very good cover guy. But his skill set is not what he was brought in here to do anything other than what I just said, these latter two things. He was brought in to rush the passer, and he's a lead at that. Hey, Sills, Drew Rosenhaus is telling Jalen Carter not to take meetings and teams outside of the top 10. This kid has a bad pro day, bad interviews, is now waving teams off. Thoughts? This is what I would do if I was Jalen Carter on April 3rd right here, coming out of the April Fool's weekend. If I'm Jalen Carter, the number one thing you better not do is lie. Even if it hurts you. Do not lie. Do not lie. Was that your fault? Yes. Did you get a speeding ticket? Yes. Don't come up with – you ever watch Draft Day? And they were talking about that thing they do with the playbook, and they put a $100 bill at the back of it to see if the quarterbacks read the playbook. And the so-called number one guy didn't read the playbook, but then told him about the $100, and then the guy tried lying about the lie. Don't lie about the lie. End it. It can't get any better for you. Whatever you do, don't lie. Just tell, hey, you can have mistakes. Hey, man, I didn't see. Yeah, okay, I did. All right. But just don't sit there and try to make an excuse for it. You got to be accountable. And I think right now, one of the things about Jalen Carter, my issue is accountability. Okay? Don't lie, kid. Look, you're young. You make mistakes. I get it. We all did. Jerome Brown did. I'll give you a Jerome story. So I was there for this. Eagles, Vikings. I think the Steelers too, man, were like really interested in Jerome. And Jerome had a gun charge and a speeding ticket charge. He had a lot of like reckless things at Miami. And they thought he was a loose cannon. Okay, Miami, we're all there kind of. You've heard Jimmy Johnson call us all on the edge. We were all like that. And the guy goes to Jerome. Jerome goes like this to me. We're sitting around. We're over at Monty Trainer's, a local place in town that we always used to go eat. And he's like, they asked me if I had those guns and those Uzis and all that. I go, what'd you tell him? He goes, I told him I gave them to you. And I went like this. Great. He goes, but I did tell him they were mine. I said, Jerome, you probably got drafted in the first round now because of that. Jimmy kept telling him too, don't lie to these guys. They're looking for the lie. Remember, when a guy like Jeff Ireland, who was the general manager of the Dolphins, asked Des Bryant if his mother was a prostitute, that wasn't because he thought Des Bryant's mother was a prostitute. He wanted to see Des Bryant's reaction. Now, you can't ask them ridiculous questions like that any longer. Okay? You can't ask those ridiculous questions. But Ireland and all them guys used to ask, they wanted to see the response, how you acted under pressure. If you made excuses up, don't make excuses for the lie you told. Hey, man, yeah, okay. 10 lies, it's not going to work. Teams are going to pass on you because you know why? That means you're not trustworthy, man. Jalen Carter, it's not a talent issue now. It's not a talent issue with Jalen Carter. It's an accountability issue. Dude, he's the second best player in the draft next to Will Anderson. He's the second best player. Okay? By the way, Gary Cobb's going to join us as he always does on Monday at 4:30 Eastern from Fox 29. We'll get his thoughts. Took my son to Jerome's grave 2 weekends ago. You're in Brooksville? Oh, Philly loves Jerome. He sure does. I owe him a hat. That's great. So you were in Brooksville. I posted Jerome on my Twitter page. I posted because it was Palm Sunday. And Jerome is a pretty religious guy, man. He's, I believe, a Baptist. And Big Sills is a Roman Catholic. And we used to go back and forth and have some very spirited debates. And Philly, you'll love this one, man, before we move on to the other teams. So Jerome used to go like this. Man, every time I walk into a Catholic church, man, I mean, guys are always sad. So when I walked in, and it was for Jerome's funeral all of a sudden everybody started singing like we were at a concert. And I looked over at Mr. Brown and he goes, it's a celebration of life. My wife and I looked at one another and we cried harder. I was like, man, there was Reggie White and Clyde Simmons and Seth Joyner and Chris Carter and Buddy Ryan. And it was a who's who. It was a who's who that day. My wife has on this side, Cortez Kennedy, on the other side, Russell Maryland. Both these guys are in tears. One was the first player taken in the draft, and Cortez over here on the left side was putting a Hall of Fame career together. They're holding my wife's hand. I'm sitting behind these two. Lonzo's sitting next to me. Winston Moss is sitting next to me. Reggie's on the other side. Whew. I told you what we did too, man. Jerome didn't like ties. So when we put him in the ground, everyone took their tie off, put it in his box and closed it up and sent him to the greatest football field in the world. That's what we did. I mean, I'll tell you what, a moment I'll never forget. Probably one of the greatest teammate moments I've ever felt because it was Canes and Eagles. And we'll always be connected. That's why Keith Byers and Keith Jackson and all them dudes are my boys. And we're all boys to this day. Be a day I'll never forget. I want to continue this. We haven't done the Giants. I want to do the Giants. And every team as we get ready for the NFL draft. Got the Giants. There's the Giants. We'll do the Giants next. All 32 teams. We did the Eagles. We'll kind of reset that a little bit. Also, bottom of the hour, Gary Cobb from Fox 29. Hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.